because guess what? If you want to make money with your music, you're an entrepreneur, whether whether you like it or not. And I feel like a lot of musicians are the only business owners that don't know they're in business. And I talk about like all these different avenues that you can be making money. And it's like, yeah, it's $500 here, it's $300 here. Ooh, here's a couple thousand here.
Yeah.
That's actually a very sustainable. I mean, I was able to take my production business to a six-figure business doing a bunch of jobs like this. And I'm in no way a household name. I am not Beyonce big.
Yeah.
But another thing that I see with musicians is that they're waiting to be Beyonce big and they're staying broke in the meanwhile. And it's like,
Yeah.
baby, it ain't Beyonce big or broke. Like, let's go, like, let's learn how to record and produce. Even if you
Yeah.
don't go like down the rabbit hole and become this like master engineer producer, if you can track your vocals, you can be a session vocalist from your home.
Hi, Ohana. Welcome to the Musician Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Alise, where we talk about the myth of getting signed to air quote, make it. This is not true and outdated information. That's why I'm bringing on so many different independent musicians that are, in their definition, air quote, making it, to prove to you that there's a plethora of ways for everyday musicians like you and me to make money. Now, I know there are so many different things we need to know as independent musicians, from how to write great copy and how to market and songwriting and producing and how to build a home studio and so on. Most of the time, we don't even know what we need to know. It's hard to juggle it all. So, I put together a free members area that you can sign up to right now, where I share my favorite podcasts, books, and online courses on all those topics with you, so you can save yourself money and time. I've done it all for you. As Tony Robbins likes to say, growth is the only limit to your happiness. And we don't want that. All you have to do is click the link below or go to alisekoa.com/free. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to the Musicians Secrets Podcast. I'm Alise Koa, your host, and I have an amazing guest with me today. She's a singer, she's a producer, she owns 2 businesses, which is amazing. She has produced like a boss, and Boomfox Productions. What a tongue twister. Boomfox Productions, and she's been placed on like Sony and Warner, Chappell, Fox, you name it, she's been on there, and I can't explain how amazing this woman is. So I'm just gonna let her talk and welcome Kris Bradley.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
You're making me so nervous. Usually I don't have any problems with introductions, but if you can see how much I'm shaking.
Oh my gosh. No, that was a fabulous introduction. Thank you so much.
I'm just so nervous because I seriously just respect you so much. And, I just take everything in that you put out there, especially like your podcast is amazing. So just putting it out there,
Thank
Produced
you.
Like a Boss podcast is very, very valuable, and you throw in so many nuggets, just value bombs, really. And you get amazing guests on there as well, so that kind of inspires me to bring my A game. So I'm so honored for you to be here. That's why I'm shaking so much.
No, thank you. I absolutely love your energy. And even when you reached out about being on the podcast, just the language that you used made me connect with you instantly. It sounds like we share like a similar goal for, the value we want to bring to our audiences. So I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel good. Yeah.
Don't be nervous, girl. Don't be nervous. I need to be nervous. I'm the one on the podcast. I'm the one being interviewed.
Yeah, but I want to do my best, and I want to make sure you feel comfortable, and this is like a good experience. And this is but that's what made me reach out, because I'm like, we have the same goal. We have a different approach of going about it, but at the end of the day, we want independent musicians to win, right?
Yep.
And we kind of come from a similar background of like being singer-songwriters, and then kind of being more or less like formed into this different musician. You went into production. I went a different route, right? Out of kind of necessity, like you like to say. I love your story. So just introduce yourself. What got you into music, and then obviously like into the production side as well, because that is a really cool story.
Oh, sure. So I mean, music has been in my life since I was really young. My mom had me really young, and we lived with my great grandma for like the first 8 years. So I grew up with a piano in the house, playing like jazz standards and classical pieces and stuff like that. Nothing as cool as like songwriting, you know. Even then,
Yeah,
like my great grandma didn't know anything about songwriting, but she's like, you can learn Glenn Miller and you can learn Bach and Beethoven, you know. So I was a little bit late of a bloomer to songwriting. Even as a teenager, as I started to dabble around with it, I was just really insecure. So I didn't really bloom as a songwriter until I got into my 20s. But once I did bloom into it, which really just came from realizing I could study the craft and I could get better at it. And that it didn't just have to be like, blah, what's going to come out of my brain? Oh, that's it. And if it sucks, then, you know, I'm screwed. No, it was like, okay, this isn't great, but like, how can I get better? And I really kind of began the path of a seeker in like my mid 20s, you know, whether it was, you know, spirituality or music or whatever. So I go down the rabbit hole of learning how to write great songs. And I get to a place where I'm starting to pitch those songs for opportunities, whether it be for sync or whether it be to pitch to another artist to cut. I mean, I knew I wanted to be behind the scenes. I was really enjoying not necessarily being like an artist, even though I sing too. I really wanted to do the songwriter thing.
yeah,
And, you know, was, you know, at that point, you have to invest in yourself. So I'm hiring producers left and right for demos. And it's like anywhere from like $500 to more, you know, if I'm doing something
yeah.
like, even when I made my own record, I mean, I paid $3,000 for one of my last singles. And
Wow.
so, you know, I'm spending all this money. And in the midst of all that, by the way, I moved from LA. I'm from LA originally to Nashville because I'm like, I'm going to pursue this songwriting thing,
Yeah,
you know, and I get there and I'm writing even more. I'm
yeah,
spending all this money on demos and I realize I'm running out of money. Like I'm writing faster than my bank account can keep up with, you know? And so I decided that I'm going to learn how to produce my own music. It was, you know, a publisher mentioned to me in a meeting once. She goes, well, you know, you should just learn how to produce. And it was like the first time anyone ever even gave me the
yeah,
confidence that that was possible
yeah,
because I knew I had heard of that people were doing this from like their laptops in their home studios, but it was like, oh, that's not for me. I could never do that. So it
yeah.
was almost like I needed this permission from an industry professional. She's like, you know, if you just produced your own stuff, you'd be unstoppable. And I
Mhm.
was like, really? So, you know, I dove into it and, you know, I sucked. I sucked real bad at first, but you know, I just kept going, even though I'm not
So,
super tech savvy.
yeah,
And I found it to be very, very frustrating, you know, but I just stuck with it until I worked through that. And, you know, eventually I was able to demo my own songs and pitch my own songs, which, you know, led to getting some cuts and, you know, some placements. And then artists started asking me to, or songwriters started asking me to produce their demos for them. And then publishers came to me in Nashville and they're like, can you do the demos for our writers? So
yeah,
now I like have this demo business where I'm the girl people go to demo their songs, which is so ironic because like for so long I was a songwriter who was paying the
yeah.
producers
Going
who didn't
out.
have the money, and now here I am charging the big bucks for the demos, you know. And I'm trying to give you a kind of a shortened version of this, but
Yeah,
so then then artists started asking me to produce like their actual records, not just demos to pitch, but like, hey, I want to release a record and I like your demos, could you produce my record? And I'm like, yeah, you know. So one thing led to another. And like I said, you know, like you said, I learned to produce kind of out of necessity at first because I
yeah,
couldn't afford to hire producers.
yeah,
But then I really just fell in love with it. And, you know, as I was doing it more and more and working with other artists, I kind of naturally started to teach them things. Like as they were at my home studio, I'd be like, hey, if you would just do this and this, you know, you could just track your vocals at home. And I started just teaching little things. And they would say, you know, you should teach this. Like, you have a really good way of simplifying it for the songwriter because, like, whenever producers or engineers tried to explain it to them, they would get that techno babble, like your
yep.
eyes roll back in your head, and you're like, I do not know what you're saying right now, you know,
Exactly.
which would happen to me when I tried to learn from other producers as well
Yeah,
sometimes. So, I guess just naturally, I found a way to kind of put it into a language that songwriters could understand. And one thing led to another. I read a book called Launch that somebody suggested that kind of introduced me to the online course world,
mhm,
and I was like,
yeah,
I'm going to create an online course, you know, and that began Produce Like a Boss.
uh-huh,
Yeah. So, I mean, I have Boomfox Productions, which was the name of my production company
yeah,
for everything I've been doing as a producer. And then Produce Like a Boss started right at the end of 2019, going into 2020.
uh,
And I launched my first course from voice memo to demo,
yeah,
which is our flagship course, like introduction to basically how to produce your music from start to finish. So many of
yeah.
us have like a voice memo on our phones, right? You know, we have all these
Oh,
ideas, right? But they
yeah,
just sit there collecting dust. So I'm like,
yeah.
I'm gonna do a program for songwriters called Voice Memo to Demo, where I'm going to show them how to produce their own music. And I really, if I'm being honest, Okay. I thought I was going to do this and help my friends, and maybe a couple other people would be interested. And maybe like, best case scenario, I get more clients as a producer or something. I was like,
Yeah.
brand recognition, help other people. Cool. I didn't know that it would be like people would really take to it in the way that they did. And
Yeah.
now we've just passed 1,000 students, and we have so many people that just case studies, testimonials that are like, this changed my life. I get it now. I can produce my own music. I'm getting placements. I'm getting licenses, and all that. And some people are now doing this as to supplement their income. It's just crazy. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And I'm just really loving like teaching this and paying it forward to other artists
Yeah.
as and songwriters. So yeah.
That's so cool because I mean that's something I wish I would have had like a couple of years ago because I also started out as a singer-songwriter and then I mean I went and studied it, but still like when they brought in producers to teach us songwriters how, how to produce, and they exactly it's what you said, is like they made it super complicated, did it super fast. So I was just like, I just got discouraged after they tried to explain the how to do the EQ or the compression.
Mhm.
And I'm just like tapped out. I'm like, okay, like if this is like the basics and I'm not even getting those, um, then
What's interesting about that is that, and that's not the style of how I teach. I think that like, stuffing our brain full of like all this information is what people are tempted to do. Take a Logic 101 class or a Pro Tools 101 class. And it's like a lot of people teach in that style where they're going to break down and teach you all these. First of all, there could be an entire course, and there could be a whole school on EQ. There could be a
yeah,
whole school on
yeah,
compression,
yeah,
reverb. All of these things have their own deep dive, right? So introducing that alongside of how to arrange and produce and run a DAW, which is
yeah, yeah.
engineering aside from producing, I mean, all of that, it's to me it's like trying to teach someone 5 different languages at once,
Yeah,
right? So my approach is a little bit less, it's like that's like saying if you need to know how to drive a car, that you need to know how to take apart the engine and understand how it works. Man, I don't know how my car works. I just get in and put in the key and drive it. So I teach music production from a very similar way where it's like we don't need to go that deep into all that stuff. And I do teach EQ and compression and all that, but
yeah.
I think not in the same way that
Mhm.
engineers and producers they place so much importance on that, like that's the thing that creates good songs.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not. So I start with the song,
yeah,
and I begin with the arrangement,
yeah,
and then as those pieces come together, now I'm introducing you to EQ and compression in a way that you understand because it's in context. I'm not trying to go, first you need to learn everything there is about EQ and then compression, then we get to jump in and play. No, let's get in here, let's put a bunch of instruments together and parts together, let's arrange a song, and then when it doesn't sound good because it's muddy, I'm going to show you why.
yeah,
Or when this part gets really loud and then it gets really quiet, I'm going to show you how to even that out. But they have to hear it and see it and feel it first.
yeah.
Trying to teach compression to somebody that has like never even programmed like or put a track together, I feel like it's nearly impossible.
Never even opened any DAW program. At that point, I've never like
Yeah.
we used Logic 10, and I've never to this point ever opened any DAW programs, let
Yeah.
alone Logic. And now they're talking about compression, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa! What are all these buttons? What am I looking at? What
Yeah.
this? And then and then you can plug in the keys and blah blah. And I'm like, oh,
Well, another thing that I think is something that we don't take advantage of enough is the fact that, like, modern technology and AI is getting smarter, better, faster, right? And a
yeah,
lot of people
yeah,
are fighting that, especially old school guys that are still in analog or purists that are like audiophiles. They want you to struggle as much as they did sometimes. And I hate to say that about my fellow engineers and producers, but some of them don't like to admit that, like, you know what? There's a preset for that now. There's a free plugin that actually fixes that problem you used to have to work so hard for. And I'm sorry it was hard for you, but moving forward, it doesn't have to be for this new generation of songwriter artists. And so I like to bring that to everyone's attention. It's like when we're learning EQ, for example, let's jump into this EQ and see what presets they have. Because guess what? There's one that's called acoustic guitar. Hello. There's one that's called, warm acoustic. And I'm not saying that one preset works on all acoustic guitars. No,
yeah,
I would never say that. But there's a reason that an award-winning, super techy engineer created that preset. It wasn't made by just anyone. Like it was created by a human,
yeah,
right? A lot of
yeah,
times these are award-winning mix engineers that create these presets, and they're saying, "This is what I do. Why not use that as a starting point? It might not be 100%, but if it gets you to 70% and then you can tweak
exactly.
from there,
Yeah.
then you're in a much better position than having to understand and know everything about EQ just to even start. No, I don't agree with teaching that way because that didn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I love that you come from from like a singer-songwriter background with no tech experience, with like you said, like a non-techy way to like explain that. And you could definitely see that in your teaching. And I think that's a huge strong point, that you just have a completely different background than someone that just has been producing forever and that's like the only thing they love to do, right? It's just a completely different way of teaching, and I just love how you approach that. But what really impressed me was, obviously you're a really awesome producer, but you have like, you're running 2 businesses, right? And that, I mean, that takes a skill on its own to do that, right? I mean, I'm kind of just diving into that, but you're like in it, you're in the trenches, you've been doing this for a couple of years now. So I want to pick your brain a little bit about that, because like
Sure.
that is something that I think where a lot of musicians kind of drift away from or try to kind of avoid a little bit.
The
So,
business side of things.
yes.
Oh yeah.
Marketing, business, all that, the fun stuff we like to hear about. Ironically, the more I found out about marketing, the more I started to love it. But until then, I was like, ugh.
Same here. Same here.
Keep away. So there's one place where people are the very honest to ask questions, and it's not with their family, it's not even with their spouse or their loved ones. It's Google. So I went to Google and I found some very interesting questions that would be very interesting for you to answer before we get into like the nitty gritty stuff. Because these are like real questions people are asking, and I'm quite, well, not shocked, because this was me like 5 years ago. These were my questions, and now I'm like, you know what? Let's help some fellas out. Let's do a quick lightning round. You can have a simple yes, no answer. I know we could.
Oh, a lightning round.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an entire episode.
Bamboozled. All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
You can take as much time as you want, but I mean, we could do an entire episode just on one question. So we can maybe pick on one question later on. But I thought these were just like very very interesting questions. So here's the first one: how to make money with beats. Again, we could have an entire episode just on that, but just off the bat.
I'll give you a concise answer here. Create a catalog of pitchable, placeable beats. Use things like reference tracks so that you know you're creating something that the market wants. Don't just make beats you want. Go on Spotify, see what's popular. Go to hip hop, go to whatever your genre is. Doesn't have to be hip hop, country, pop, whatever. Use some reference tracks, make songs that feel like they could be on a playlist with those songs. Catalog them. Okay. So now you've got at least 10 to start. Go on websites like BeatStars or Airbits, upload your catalog. Make sure you upload all your stems and your as well, so that if somebody wants to get an exclusive license from you, they can. And make your beats available for lease. Price them accordingly. Like, look at what other people are pricing their beats for. Don't go in there going, I'm going to charge so much more, or I'm going to charge so much less. Kind of keep in the flow with the marketplace. About $29 to $49.95 is a good range for leasing instrumental beats. And that's just the first step. And then I know we want to keep it short. So the second step is release regularly. Okay. And create some marketing around that. And that could be as simple as creating one graphic. Let's say it's your cover art for your beat, and then pull it into iMovie, and then pull in your beat so that graphic is in the background while your song is playing, and then upload that to YouTube every time you do a new beat. Release at least 3 times a week, and you'll start to see sales for beats.
Holy cow. Well, I could just end the podcast right here. Like, wow, what a lightning round. Okay. Is a music production degree worth it?
I'm going to say, I can only speak from personal experience, so I cannot generalize and speak for other people. But I would say no. I would say that the money that, first of all, online courses, you can go, usually they're lifetime access. You can go back over and over again. You can't do that with music school. Once you're gone, you're done. Number one, right? And I would say that about most education. I
Sorry.
would say that about most education and most degrees, to be honest, with the exception of being a doctor or,
Or a
maybe a
lawyer.
lawyer or whatever. I really think our traditional education system, and this is including audio engineering,
Mhm.
is a little more dated. And number one, and number two, from where we're going with the new music industry, we have more home studio producers blossoming. They need to know how to create music in their home with the gear that they have, not how to run a patch bay and a big ass board that they're never probably going to touch in their career. Now, if you're planning to go and work in major commercial studios, yes, you need to go and intern, and you probably might need even, I wouldn't even say you need to go to music school and get a degree though. I'd say go and intern, and find a mentor that's working in a commercial studio.
Mhm. Yes.
That
Amen.
works.
Amen. Yeah, no, that is definitely, I would agree 100%. I mean, this is where the future is going anyway. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what I say, just online courses. Forbes said that by the year 2025, it's going to be like a $1 billion a day
Oh,
industry.
it's a
So,
billion-dollar industry. It's
yeah.
already multi-million. Isn't it in the billion already or no? It's by
Uh,
2024. No, I think you're right.
yeah, I mean, I mean, it is growing really fast because that's exactly where the education system is going.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to go and study something for 5 years and they don't use the degree or whatnot, right? It's just easier to,
Right. Well, and then you get forced to take all these other things that you don't care about that fall into the, like, oh, I want to major in this. So I guess I got to take all this stuff. I mean, we're starting to move into this era of like experts and specialists that are not teaching from a place of knowledge. They're teaching from a place of knowing and
yeah,
experience. Right. And so
yes,
you can have a teacher all day up there, like, this is how to be a good music producer that's never had a placement, never
yeah,
had a cut. And you listen to their record and it
yeah,
sounds like crap. Right. Or you could even have a teacher teaching you entrepreneurship that's never started a business. It's like,
yeah,
no, we are moving away from that traditional, and then you go the length of time and the price into this whole like, hey, I did this. Here's what worked for me. Let me
yeah,
cut that price down like by, 10 times
yeah,
and customize a plan that fits you.
yeah,
I love it.
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, why would you rather learn from someone that studied it and never done that in their entire life, or someone that didn't study but has been doing it their entire life and actually have experience and know what they're talking about, right?
Right.
So I'd
100%.
cut a check to someone that has experience and knows what they're doing way more than someone who's like, I just kind of like know how to do it, but I've never actually done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I totally 100% agree. I had to learn this the hard way. I actually studied, but I mean, I don't regret it because I got to meet amazing people and it was a great experience. But yeah, you do not
Yeah.
need.
If anything, I think that's what school really, the value that school provides is that, like, is the experience of networking.
Yeah,
And,
that's for sure.
I went to music school for a year. I went to MI and did a guitar program in my early 20s. I regret nothing. I mean, I could have learned all that,
Yeah,
in books too. But I mean, the friends that I made, the experiences that I had, that was worth it for sure.
yeah. All right, that's a great answer. Why? And this is what kind of answered that shocked me a little bit, or a question. Why is it hard to be a music producer?
Why is it hard to be a music
Yeah,
producer?
that was the question, is why is it hard to be a music producer? You can agree and disagree with questions, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's
I
just
think I think the hardest thing about music production or being a music producer is understanding what a music producer is,
is
right? Because I think most people don't understand what it is, and there's a lot of confusion, because the roles have changed and evolved over the time, over the years. If you look at someone like Rick Rubin, the man did not play an instrument or never touched a board. He was just in the room. So you got things like a visionary. I think understanding the different kinds of producers will
yeah,
clarify. It's like, and now we've got these engineer, which is kind of what I encourage, the engineer, songwriter, artist, producer who can play every part and record every part and make a record from their
give
home studio,
everything.
and then you got and then you've got you've got the songwriter producer where like the Nashville style where it's like they're all about gathering, it's all about the song and they gather the musicians and
Yeah,
they're kind of a therapist to the artist. So I
yeah,
think what's important is to research, and understand what the different levels of like what kinds of producers are there and what are you looking to become, because there's a difference between saying I want to get together, lead a band, and pick out the right instruments, I'm sorry, the right studio musicians for this project and
yeah,
orchestrate that whole thing kind of like uh like a manager almost and a
yeah, yeah,
therapist to the whole project, or like, hey, I want to be a self-empowered musician and
yeah.
make beats from my bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's my answer is I think the hardest thing is understanding what the definition is and how it applies to you and where you want to go with it, because it's too broad these days to say, I want to be a music producer.
Exactly.
And don't let anybody tell, and by the way, you know,
Yeah.
don't let the old school guys who are like, well, that's not being a producer, tell you what is and what is not being a producer. I think in the end of the day, for me, the short answer is a producer is a visionary, right? So if you are like, you don't have to be able, like, yes, I teach people how to produce and record your own music, but
Yeah.
if you, let's just go into a scenario here.
Yeah.
If I barely know how to turn on my DAW, but I kind of know how to throw some things together, right? But I can orchestrate and say, you know what? I put this basic track together, but I'm going to outsource the drums on this, and I'm going to outsource the guitars on this, and then I'm going to hire a synth player. But I'm telling everybody what my vision is.
Yeah.
I'm producing. Producing doesn't have to mean doing it yourself as well. And that's another level of producer, right?
Wow.
You know, you got all these beat makers that are like making beats and putting them up on BeatStars. Sure,
Yeah.
they're producers in their own rights. They're really beat makers though, because if an artist goes to release that track and decides that they don't like, what are they going to do? And they're not going to work with that beat maker. What they're going to do is they're going to take that beat maker's beat. They're going to say, can I get all your stems? Here's an exclusive license fee. And they're going to go to their producer who's going to take what he wants. He's going to mute what he doesn't want. He's going to incorporate that into something else. Well, now the beat maker's role in that process, he's not the producer. He's the beat maker. Now, if the artist said, hey, beat maker, I really like your beat, I want to lease it. And also, can I come over and will you produce this for me? Then he becomes the producer. So see how there's a lot of muddy water. It's just not clear.
Yeah.
Like the understanding and demystifying of what it really means.
You don't have these clear lines, you know, it's like, okay, when you do this and this and this, then you're this and then this.
Oh no, not in the music business.
Oh no, oh my gosh. Oh,
it's like the least black and white business ever. And once I stopped trying to get black and white answers to my questions, I relieved myself of a lot of stress.
Oh yeah, I think that must be so nice because you're just like, you know what? I'm just gonna do whatever I love doing, and
you just make your own damn rules. And the only rule is, does it sound good? Does it sound good?
Amen to that. Wow. Last question. That is a really short one, but I thought that was also a very interesting one. Are music producers happy? That is actually a question.
That's interesting. I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, and this was the explanation underneath this. So this speaks a lot for producers. It says, music producers are one of the happiest careers in the US. At Career Explorer, we conduct an ongoing survey with millions of people and ask them how satisfied they are with their career. As it turns out, music producers rate their career happiness 4.3 out of 5 stars, which puts them in the top 1% of careers.
Wow, I love that. And that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, it's not like asking a postal worker. You know, it's like,
are you happy with what you're doing?
Right? I could totally see why that would be the case.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. I would have never figured to ask a question like that, but then I really loved the answer, and I'm like, oh, you know, I'll ask a producer how happy she is with her job.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to do what I love for living.
I've been listening to your podcast, and I had the pleasure to talk with you previously as well, and really know what you're really passionate about. And I mean, through your podcast, you obviously have this really clear vision and line. It's a lot about mindset and also the technical skills. You're okay, the answer, you could just how you answer the questions, okay, this is step 1, do this, step 2, do this, and that's really how your podcast is, and it's so helpful and just amazing. So you kind of answered it in the previous questions, but to kind of crystal this out a little bit more, because you started out as a singer-songwriter, why production? I mean, like you said, you kind of answered it. And why do you think that that's a better way to get into the business aspect? Because you like to combine the two.
Yeah.
So why production?
Yeah. So I mean, I absolutely love teaching music production and everything around the technical, all the technical things, right, that help people get their music out of their head and into the But outside of that, I mean, what really lights me up is the why behind it. And that why is that, I believe that we can use music production and the ability to record ourselves and have a home studio as a tool to really to step into our entrepreneurship as musicians. Because guess what? If you want to make money with your music, you're an entrepreneur, whether you, whether you like it or not. And I feel like a lot of musicians are the only business owners that don't know they're in business, right?
Yep.
And so it's just, I look at what the possibilities were, and I've done like a diagram on this, and this is inspiring me to get back into doing that. But it's like, you look at what the possibilities are for you to monetize your skills as a songwriter or as an artist, right? And it's like, okay, boom, I got like, performance royalties. I've got masters, I've got sync placements, it's like, here's all the ways that you can make money. And it's even less if you're just a songwriter and you're not an artist, because now you got to outsource, right? But even as an artist or a songwriter, in order to make all those tracks, look at the overhead you need to bring in there by hiring a producer, right? Once, and I can only speak from personal experience, but it's like, I was the songwriter, I was the artist. And it was like, okay, I'm trying to get all these opportunities. And then these little things would happen. Like I'd get a song in where it's like, okay, I submit it for a brief for a film and TV opportunity. Then I'd hear back and it'd be like, oh my God, we love this. Could you give us a version that's just drums and bass? Or could you give us a vocal lower version? Something where I needed to be able to control my damn master.
Yeah.
To be able to get my client, right? Or my partner here, what they need. I didn't have that control. And so not only that, reaching out to the producer was sometimes a wash. Oh, I don't have that hard drive anymore. Or they just wouldn't get back to me. Because guess what? Once they took my money, I was no longer a concern to them, because no one's going to care about your music as much as you do. So I was saying all that to say, it's like, I realized, okay, here's the money, the money that I can make as a songwriter. Here's the money I can make as an artist. But if I'm a producer, it was like, I quadrupled that list, because now I can do anything from doing session work and tracking vocals or instruments for other people. I can produce for myself. I can produce a podcast. I can produce custom songs, jingles. I've done kids songs. I've done plays. I've done, and the list goes on and on. So many people are focused on like the big win of like, oh, I want to get $100,000 Target commercial. Yeah, bro, me too. Okay, let's keep working for
Get in
that.
line.
No, I love that. Let's go for these big wins. I love that. But it's like, don't stop there. That's where I get super like lit up, because it's like, if you're so focused on like this big kind of like treasure in the distance, of like a record deal or this like huge placement, you're missing out on the micro opportunities in the meanwhile. Do you know how many content creators there are? Like, that's the world we're stepping into. We were just talking about this. People outside of Fox and Miramax need music too. Okay. We got YouTube creators, we got podcasters, we've got influencers. There are so many ways to show up and serve an audience as a musician if you can record and produce. And the stakes are not as high. There's a difference between, I'm going to produce this wall of sound rock track banger that's going to be like a trailer. The requirements and skill level required for that are so much more than if, doing like a custom kids song for somebody, or just a custom song. Somebody wants to gift a song to their loved one. That's a thing now. There's a bunch of businesses popping up around that where you can, they're custom songwriting.
Out. Dang.
Oh, and I'm actually I'm working on a new course right now called Home Studio Boss, which is going to be like the master class of my of Produce Like a Boss. And I talk about like all these different avenues that you can be making money. And it's like, it's $500 here, it's $300 here. Ooh, here's a couple thousand here. That's actually a very sustainable. I mean, I was able to take my production business to a 6-figure business doing a bunch of jobs like this. And I'm in no way a household name. I am not Beyonce big. But another thing that I see with musicians is that they're waiting to be Beyonce big and they're staying broke in the meanwhile. And it's like, baby, it ain't Beyonce big or broke. Like, let's go, like, let's learn how to record and produce. Even if you don't go like down the rabbit hole and become this like master engineer producer, if you can track your vocals, you can be a session vocalist from your home.
Totally.
That makes like a total, I mean, for a long time, I would say that was like 60 to 70% of my income. No longer now, because I have different businesses and stuff, but for a long time, like just doing vocals was my bread and butter. And every time I sat down to do a vocal, okay, lead, backgrounds, ad libs, it would take me maybe a couple hours and I would make anywhere from $200 to $500.
Wow.
And more if it was like a sync or a label project. But like that was just for basic, like, hey, I'm Joe, Smith, and I need a singer to sing on my demo. Hey, I'm Amanda Sampson and I need a kid song written for my book, stuff like that. So I went on a tangent there, but that's why music production for me is a tool to step into the entrepreneur that you can be as a musician.
Yeah. I mean, the question would be, why not be a producer, right?
Yeah,
It's
why
like
not?
the same thing. Like people were like, oh, what are you going to do with a music degree? I'm like, okay, what do you listen to when you're in the grocery store? What do you listen to when your friends are around? What do you listen to when you're working out or, you know, doing yoga or meditation? Guess what? There's music. So I'm
Music.
like,
Yeah.
and you're telling me what I'm gonna do with a freaking music degree, you know? And the better question is, why not be a producer, right? It's, and you answered that really well. And what I love, what you also address in your podcast, but also in your content that you put out there, which you kind of touched upon a little bit, is you don't have to be the best person. Like we musicians go this all or nothing. I'm this broke musician or I'm the next Beyonce, right? And
Yeah.
you just said like there's so much space in the middle. Like again, we're like growing into this like online stuff and everyone needs music, everyone wants music, and so there's so much money to make in the middle. And like you said, you're not that household name, but you've already worked with amazing big companies just being you, you know. You're like, oh, I'm not the next Beyonce. So here's the question is, why does talent not equal success, and why do you not have to be the best to start making money?
Because talent, in my opinion, is extremely overrated and it actually spoils us. Because when you're talented, but first of all, that's something you're born with. Okay. Talented is something that like God gave to you. Like you came into this world with it. You know, for example, I could harmonize before I knew what harmony was. As a kid, I came into this world singing. Okay.
Wow.
I'm not proud of that. You know why? Because I didn't earn that. What's more important is skills and implementation and what you do, right? There are a lot of people that weren't born with any natural talent that worked their butt off to achieve success. And I think you actually value that more because you have the skin in the game and you weren't spoiled by it. And just to give you an example of how talent spoils you, have you ever had something where you're really good at it, like naturally, like you're a fast learner, and then you go to do something and you're not good at it and you immediately throw your hands up in the air? Well, I can't do this. It's just too hard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, well, did
Exactly.
you really put the time in? Now, people that aren't naturally talented never think that way. Their mindset is totally different.
Yeah.
People that don't think that way go, oh, this is hard. Okay, I'm going to have to put some work in. And they,
Yeah.
but when you're used to like, and I'll tell you right now, like I was always like, I would always get things quick as like a kid, or I'd go into a new job and they go, oh, you're such a smart, you're a fast learner. And I always took so much pride in that. I was like, oh, I'm so talented. No, it is not good, because when you step into a situation that requires effort, you
Yeah.
go, it's too hard, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I don't think that talent equals success. I think hard work, I think persistence, I think skill and implementation equals success.
Wow, this podcast is going in a direction I had no idea we were
That
gonna go.
was the best blooper I've literally ever had. So if you edit it out, just send me that part because I need that for my life in my Oh my dear gosh. Okay.
Oh my god, this is my favorite. Oh my god, that's gonna be the trailer. Be like, guess what? We talked about my podcast today.
By the way, you guys, Alise told me she goes, oh, by the way, we don't curse on this podcast. I'm like, no problem. I'm just gonna drop a sexy bomb right in the middle.
Love it.
Okay, okay.
I love it.
Another thing though that I think that people mistake that like value with hard work as well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not the case, because if it was, it's, if you think about like Henry Ford and you think of the motor company and you think
Yeah.
of who makes the most money, it's not the mechanics. It's not the
Yeah.
people building the cars, breaking their backs, working 50 hours a week and getting the most dirt and, grime under their nails.
Yeah.
It's just not how it works, right?
Yeah.
Value equals success. Who can provide the most value? And
Mhm.
it might not seem fair even,
Yeah.
but that's just how it goes, right?
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, also like Tony Robbins, he talks about that a lot. He's like, that's at the end of the day, like we're all born equally as in humans, but he says the people that make more money are the people that add more value, right? So because he said, and this was a slap in the face for me, is like your bank account equals the amount of value you're adding. And I'm like,
Right.
Okay.
That
Okay.
was a big one for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if it could basically boils down to this, like even Think and Grow Rich talks about it, and it's like if you like your wealth and your value is literally equal to how many lives you change, how many people's lives you enhance, and how many people you help.
Yeah.
And that could be like, you know, you might be as a musician, you might change hundreds of thousands of lives with a record that you make.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. But you know, I just, for me, something switched in my brain, and it's interesting to not to go on a side tangent here, but whenever as an artist, I would try to do like a content video or try to do social media, something always felt off. Like even when I did like if I tried to do like a music video and like look sexily at like the camera and act to sell my song, like something was disconnected for me, and it always felt
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I had a lot of anxiety around it.
Yeah.
I was like, gosh, that's why I'm not meant to be an artist. I'm just too uncomfortable. No, I think that was just the universe's way of like gently guiding me to like where I was supposed to be. And because the second I started showing up to teach, all of
Yeah.
a sudden I'm not camera shy anymore. Like, what happened there? Like, people are
Yeah.
like, oh, you're on camera. I'm like, what, how? How did that happen? And it's because it's so not about me. It's
Yeah.
so not about me. It's like I
Yeah.
just like I get into a flow that unlike any other place that I've never had with myself as an artist musician, which is fine, you know? I'm actually more I feel more fulfilled on this end
Yes.
on teaching than I ever had as an artist. So,
Awesome. Yeah, it's like it's usually when when you're fearful, or if you're not like have that anxiety, it's usually because you're thinking about you and not because
mhm,
you're thinking about the people you're serving. You know, that's
100%.
again Tony Robbins bomb right there. But that's
100%.
what he talks about is like, you know, that's why he has so much drive and so much passion, because he rolled up on stage in a freaking wheelchair because he wouldn't, you know, quit. He's like, you know what, I need to serve these people, I need to change those lives. And even though he was like, he, you know, he went to the hospital like afterwards, but he's like, right now I have these couple of hours, I need to save this, like serve these people, I need to change their lives. And he went up there with a wheelchair. And you know, he's like, as soon as, you know, that fear creeps in, it's usually because we're selfish people, and we're like, but I don't know how to produce, and I don't know, I feel like an imposter, or you know, all these excuses that we usually come up with is because of me.
Mm,
I feel inadequate, I don't feel good enough to serve this group of people, I'm not smart enough, I don't have a degree in that. You know, all these excuses are usually
yeah.
because of me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like the second we make it, that's the other thing too, is like the second we make it about service, it's amazing how much shifts. And I don't think musicians realize how much this applies to them. So, I mean, I know that I'm using an example of like, for me, how it manifested as a teacher these days, right? And that just happens to be what's lighting me up right now. But like, you know, this applies in your career as a musician. Okay. It's your fans that you're there to serve. If you're wanting to get your music into film and TV, it's also the fans, but it's like the viewers, but it's also the supervisor, right? It's also the
Yeah,
writer, the director. And guess what? It's the film. So
yeah,
many people want to get their music into film and TV, and they don't
yeah,
understand why this song doesn't fit in this thing. And it's like, okay, you're thinking about you and your music and what you want. You're not thinking about what this show needs. And that also brings me just kind of into this other point, which is that, you know, a lot of stuff that is working is simple for a reason. And it's because, like, for example, you know, if you have a scene happening in a movie, like they can't have that lyric being like so unless it's like a focal point, right? Where it's like the lyric is driving it. But most of the
yeah,
time,
yeah,
your music is a piece that supports.
yeah.
Right. And so
That,
simplicity is actually better. Same thing for beat makers. You're making beats. It's so tempting to go, I want to show all the talent that I have because that's what I want to do because I work so hard. Me. And then you make this beat that's slamming. It's your freaking masterpiece. And no one wants to lease it because you didn't leave room for the vocalist. Ugh. And then I'll talk to these beat makers and they're like, dude, the simplest beat I made that I was like, oh, this is garbage. This is trash. I made it in an hour. Girl, girlfriend, had beats like that where I made the beat in an hour and I'm like, oh, I'll just put this out there. And it leases for the most times for the most amount of money because someone's like, oh, this serves me. Like there's room for me on this.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, just like getting back to what you're saying, like when we show up in an act in a mindset and in a state of serving other people, you
yeah.
cannot help but succeed.
Hmm.
Musician, entrepreneur, anything.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. Yeah, that shifted completely for me as well, where I'm like, oh my gosh, duh, it's not about me. Like it seems so obvious, but like it took me forever to figure this out, that I don't like performing solo on stage. I prefer having a band around, and even then I'm not much of a performer. I'm more of the background person. I'm more the person that likes to be more in the background and like figuring stuff out and being like, oh, okay, then how can I figure out this and that. Mary Forleo, I just got her book where it says everything is figure outable.
Mhm.
And it comes back to what you said, is when you're just born with that talent, you just do it, right? But if you're having to work for it and you're like, let me figure this out before I quit and like just give it all up, right? We have a different mindset of that, and that kind of changed everything for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. When I started Boomfox Productions, which was kind of this beautiful accident, it was just happening. I was already being, what happened is first I was doing things as Kris Bradley, and I realized I was starting to do projects that weren't necessarily me as like an artist. And I was like, okay, I need like a producer name. I need like a company name. And it was Boomfox Productions, but it was like, okay, like people would reach out and I go, oh, could you do this? Like this guy reached out, can you do a bunch of kids songs for this play? And I was like, oh, I'd never done that before. He's like, I need you to hire voiceover actors and actually do all the voiceover. And I went, let me figure that out. How can I serve this person? And guess what? Like that job was like an over $20,000 job between all the custom songwriting and the producing and like getting voiceover and like that was the biggest job I had booked to that date, when that happened. And it kind of just sat there and I went, whoa, like I get it now. Like I'm running a business. This isn't just like, let me put like my music out there and just like do whatever I want and see if, who wants it. It's like, it was a little bit more strategic than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that there won't be that person that puts out just what they want and that they won't have success, but that's not like what's necessarily worked for me. So that's not the point that I can speak to. And I really don't feel like that selfishness ever wins, truly,
Not in the long run anyway.
Not in the long run,
No. I have one last question, because I know I'm, I'm want to value your time and make sure that we get everything in here. But I like what really stood out to me, because this is something that I had to learn the hard way, was like you already mentioned this more towards the beginning of the podcast, is musicians are the only people that don't know we're in business.
Yeah. The only business owners that don't know they have a business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. And I'm like, again, that was another mind changer that got me then into marketing and all that stuff. So for the last question is, why is marketing so important for us musicians, singers, songwriters, producers, whatever you're doing within the music space? Why is marketing so freaking important?
There's this saying that I don't know if I'm butchering it, but I think it's like, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, did it make a sound? Mm-hmm. For years and years and years, I went, oh, I'm just going to, like, we have the whole like Kevin Costner dream, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come.
Yes. Oh my God. I hate that.
Right. Yeah. And I just think that's a myth. Like and where people drop the ball is they think like that it's all about the art and that good art should just rise. And they don't realize that like the marketing is not just equally as important, it's actually more important. And I hate to say that as a musician, because it feels so devaluing, but it's like, it's also, think about let's put our egos in check. It's like, oh, we're so hurt that our art isn't enough. But it's like, McDonald's, for example, that is not the best cheeseburger, my friends. But you know what? The best cheeseburger you've ever had in your life, I'll tell you right now, mine is at the Pharmacy in Nashville, in East Nashville. It's called the Pharmacy. I don't know what they made, like what witchcraft they have going on in that kitchen, but it's the best burger I've ever had. I'll tell you right now, a very, very small percentage of people know about the Pharmacy, and everybody knows about McDonald's, and that burger is nothing in comparison. So it's like, if that example doesn't show you right there what the power of marketing is, then I don't know what will. And the fact of the matter is like, you've got to get eyeballs on you. You have to create awareness, right? And you have to have a message, right? Yeah. And that needs to all be spread through marketing. And not only that, and I'll just say one more thing to that. Like, we are alive in a day and age, like, thank God, where it's like, it is easier now than ever. You want a TV show? Okay, start one on
Yeah.
YouTube. You want to be a radio host? Okay, start a podcast. No
Start a
one is
podcast.
stopping you, right? You want to
Exactly.
be a rock star? Okay, release a record. You want to produce you want to get your song produced? Okay, learn how to do it yourself. Literally, nothing is standing in our way. You used to have to pay marketing agencies and digital marketing agencies or regular marketing agencies, PR firms, and all that to get your message out into the world. Guess what? We have social media and it's freaking free. So if any part of you ever wants to complain about the marketing, oh, I don't like to market, I want to challenge you to look inside yourself and go, am I being a little princessy right now? That goes for my gentleman too. No, seriously, it's like, how can we look at this in a different way where we go, instead of I have to learn marketing, I get to market. I get to market and I don't have to spend thousands of dollars a month for some firm to do it for me that doesn't actually have my best interest at mind, that I'm just another number two, because the power is in my hands.
Yeah.
And look at it as a privilege,
Mhm.
because it is so important.
Mhm. No, totally agree. I just had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah. I say the princess thing because I was the princess for so long. I was like, oh man, I'm just going to make music so good. It's not going to matter. And I hate social media and I hate marketing. And all it did was slow me down. And I would be so much further if I had learned to fall in love with marketing, which is what I've done in the last 2 years.
Same.
I fell in love with it, instead of making it this demon that it's like, oh, I just want to be the artist, which is such a bratty, for me, a bratty, like, it's like, I just want to do this. And I think, that everybody else should do everything else. And it's like, here's the thing, you're going to put yourself in a situation that's going to, first of all, even if let's say you're a kick-ass artist, right? And you don't want to do everything yourself. And let's say you have a lot of money and you can afford a team, right? If you don't actually learn how to do these things, you will not delegate them well, number one. And number two, nobody, when it comes to marketing, nobody is going to care, and nobody knows your voice, your brand, your message, or your business the same way that you do. And that's not to say, like, at this point, I've built a team and I have a great assistant who I have just up-leveled to a marketing position because she's been in my company for almost 2 years now, and she gets it. Like, she's in it and she gets the voice of the brand and everything. But like, that's not something you're just going to get like hiring a freelancer on Fiverr. Like, like learn how to market. Like, it's so important, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you learn these things, then you can delegate and outsource and say, I want to use a digital marketing agency. But like, even, and I'll stop rambling, but
I
work with a digital marketing agency. And like, when we get together for our calls and we're planning everything, they're like they know I'm going to show up and I know my like, and there goes my word. I'm sorry. Like, they know I'm going to show up and be like, okay, here's where we're going. Here's what we're targeting. Here's what we're doing, because I have this vision. But they've told me, they're like, we have clients that are just like, I don't know, help me. Okay, my guys are not cheap. So it's like, do you want to be the person that goes in helpless with no plan and goes, no, you do it? That's called throwing money at a problem to make it go away. That is like the worst thing you can do as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you do need to understand this stuff and learn this stuff. And then if you decide to work, with a company that can help increase your marketing, you know how to participate in that as the CEO of your business.
I love what Russell Brunson says, since we already brought up the sex subject. He says, the marketing is like outsourcing your sex life. Like, don't do it. Like, you would stupid to do that. I think it's it's a funny analogy, but it's so true. It's exactly what you said. If you know your stuff, then you'll get results so much faster, even if you have to outsource like parts of it. Or if you do have like a company, you're like, okay, you know what, I want this and this and this and this, and you go do it, right? It has a completely different, you save time, first of all, right? And I just thought it was like,
and then let them come with their expertise and go, oh, okay, I see what you did there. Let me improve upon that, because you're going to get so much more bang for your buck if somebody is improving on what you bring to the table. And I've noticed that too, because sometimes I'll be like, I need an email written, and I'll ask someone on the team, can you write this for me? And then they will, and it's good. I have an amazing team. But when it's better is when I write the email first and I go, here's the basics of what I need. Can you take that and just make that a little bit better? Oh, there it is. It's like, improving on, as opposed to, I guess I'll figure out what's in your brain.
Exactly. No, it makes absolute sense, and so again, like, these are a lot of value bombs in here. I hope everyone that's been listening is taking notes, or you just replay it another 20 times. There's a lot of stuff in here. Like, literally, if I just had this one podcast, just like 5 years ago, I would have saved myself so much time, so much money. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just knowing
Thank
about,
you.
marketing and stuff like that, and knowing that you're a business, like as soon as you're trying to make money, your business. It doesn't matter if you're selling socks, if you're selling a guitar or having an online business or selling beats. I don't care what the heck you're selling. But as soon as you want to make some money, guess what? Congratulations. You're a business or an entrepreneur.
Right. I always think like too, it's like you don't see any other business owner like just like haphazardly like, oh, I want to like I love to cook for people. I think I'll just like stand on the corner and hand out sandwiches and ask
Yeah.
people for money. It's like, no, they take the steps. They're like, okay, what would it take to open a restaurant? Like, and then
Yeah,
how would I,
exactly.
and then take it from there.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
because it kind of is, like you said, is a little bit heart stabbing, because we want the music to kind of speak for itself and want to be this magical thing that when we put it out there, it will just kind of do its, just
and you can.
as
And
a
that's the
creative.
thing is like your music can, but it's
Yeah,
like that's like saying I'm gonna show up in the, the Grand Old Opry and get up on that stage and I'm just gonna belt my heart out and give the most compelling performance of my life
yeah.
and not understand why it didn't have an impact when nobody was in the room.
Yeah, that's the best analogy.
You
Yes.
have to get people into the room. So
Yeah,
wouldn't you say if like
yeah,
let's say that your career, your art is your performance on the stage and the room being full is marketing, wouldn't you
yeah.
say that it's kind of just as important, if not more important, that there's actually butts in the seats?
Yes. Perfect. Let's end it there. That was, I'm gonna use that analogy from now on, because that is like perfect. I mean, I already like the McDonald's one, but like this one is, that is
Thank you.
like the cherry on top. So thank you so much for being on it for actually quite a while, and just dropping all these value bombs. You've mentioned your online courses in the beginning and what you're doing. So where can people find you? What are your next projects coming up? Go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Produce Like a Boss is the brand. So it's
Yeah.
Produce Like a Boss, at Produce Like a Boss on Instagram and Facebook.com/Produce Like a Boss, ProduceLikeABoss.com. And if you come over to our website, you'll see we've got a bunch of free trainings, and then we've also got paid courses. It's a songwriting course. There's a course on intro course on how to produce. There's a course on beat making for songwriters, which we've talked about here for a little bit. And what I'm really, really, really excited about right now is a new course I'm working on called Home Studio Boss, which releases in August of 2021. And that is going to be combining the two. From voice memo to demo is really all about getting started, like learning like how to produce, right?
Yeah.
Home Studio Boss is going to teach you how to make pitchable, placeable, profitable music and how to run a home studio a business from your home studio, which means
Yeah.
learning things like system SOPs. We've got to have systems and operations. We've got to learn how to delegate. I'm going to show you how to hire an assistant to help take things off your plate, and also how to manage your projects and get a little nerdy with it. I don't know if anyone else nerds out on spreadsheets now. I'm half kidding. No, but seriously, like, people, what happens is at first you're like, oh, I just wish I could get some work. And then you start getting work and you're like, I can't manage all these projects. So we do
Yeah.
touch on project management, but as well as like correspondence, like how are we going to get clients? How do we set our pricing? And when we do
Yeah.
get clients, what are the types of emails we should be sending back and forth? And what is delivery protocol? So, this is getting into the business side of things, but I'm also going to teach you how to make some badass music as well. So that one's called Home Studio Boss, and that's just homestudioboss.com.
Yeah. Awesome. I can't wait for that project to come out, because I mean, I buy a lot of online courses from like $7 up to like 3,000. So I get every time I mention like online course to my husband, he's like, oh, okay, which one is higher? That's like the level I've bought so many different courses. And what I love about yours that is coming up is that you're kind of marrying those two projects together, that takes the production side and the business side, is like, okay, this is how you produce, and then here's how you make money. And then that's where it's like interesting, because usually you have one or the other. So far what I've seen is, here's the production course, or here's the home studio course, and here's the business course, right? And so I'm excited for that one to come out in August, because the way that I'm understanding it is these two are coming together, and you don't have to do one or the other. You can actually do both.
Absolutely. Just to add to that, like I felt the same way where I've seen courses like for one or the other. And I feel like they're so interchangeable because we need to be talking about like things that tie in back into the DAW and into the production and the quality of the songs you're creating as well, which
Yeah.
ties into, creating a brand that's solid enough to actually monetize. So
Yeah.
I felt like if I had just done like a business course, that it would have just not provided the most value. I feel like those two just go hand in hand. And you're basically going to get like my journey, everything I did that worked, and minus all the stuff I did that didn't work and made it take longer, and get it in this this condensed version that's going to be just really easy to understand from top to bottom, like how to make pitchable, placeable, profitable music and how to run a business.
Yeah. Perfect. Oh my gosh, can't wait. So that's coming out in August,
Yeah.
in a couple of months. And so everyone keep an eye out on that. Again, Produce Like a Boss on everywhere, Instagram, everything. Also check out the podcast, because if you love this this episode, she's gonna blow your mind with her podcast as well, because she drops a lot of value bombs in those as well. So again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being on here. I've gotten less nervous now, so I've stopped shaking, but I'm really warm now.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to the Musician Secrets podcast. I appreciate your time because you could literally be doing a bazillion other things right now, but you're here with me, so thank you. If you want, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and leave a comment on how you're liking the podcast, what you've learned, and things you've even implemented that have helped you out. As a little thank you, I put together a free members area with all my best resources, books, podcasts, and online courses about everything you need to know as an independent musician, from producing to songwriting to marketing to building a home studio, all the good stuff. All you have to do is either click the link below or go to alisekoa.com/free. I'll see you on the other side. Bye!